road, and how he was known to them in the breaking of the bread. This is the word of God for the people of God.
Thanks be to God.
You may be seated. The road to Emmaus. A man and his little grandchild were out walking down the beach one afternoon. They saw a crowd of people gather around a man who had suffered a sunstroke. The grandfather was trying to explain this to this little boy. The little fellow looked up at his grandfather and said, "Grandpa, I hope you never suffer from a sunset. We have gathered today to celebrate the good news that even though we face many sunsets, there is always a sunrise. There is a simply beauty in this Easter story. We have read today about Jesus and the two of his followers on the road to Emmaus. It shows us great contrast that we're so much a part of that resurrection experience. Those followers of Jesus and all who loved him faced a sunset on that fateful Friday. The sun went down on all their hopes and all their dreams. Jesus captured their imaginations, but the Roman soldiers captured him. Jesus gained their love and devotion, but forces of hatred divided them. Jesus inspired the best in them, but now they have experienced the worst. Jesus had apparently claimed a victory, but now they have seen his utter defeat. Jesus had stood for the kingdom of God, but the power of Rome was standing over him. Jesus had promised a better life, but is now the victim of a better death. Have you ever experienced anything like this in your own life? Have there been some times when you have about lost your way? Has your life been filled with nothing but sunsets? When all you were ever wanted was a little bit of sunrise? I wonder if I am speaking to someone today who has traveled a long and lonely road. If so, then Easter speaks to you. Now I know I have told you the story about my father passing away at a young age. This was a big sunset for me. Still is. I was down and I thought that the sun had actually gone down. I just looked around. And you know what I saw? I had a sunrise right in front of me. My wife, who loved me no matter what I did or said, she also was carrying my dog, my own flesh and blood. What a beautiful sunrise. We, as we look at the scriptures today, see that on that first Easter day, two followers of Jesus were walking down the road to Emmaus, a little village outside of Jerusalem. They were going home in defeat, shame, disappointment. It was late in the evening, and the sinking sun reminded them of the sinking feeling they had had on the inside. But as they walked along, a stranger joined them. He asked what they had been discussing. They stopped dead in their tracks, looked at each other, and then asked him if he was the only person who did not know what had been going on for the last few days. He asked them, what things were they talking about? They replied that they were talking about Jesus of Nazareth, a mighty prophet, and how he had been put to death. Then they said, but we had hoped he was the one to redeem Israel. We had hoped. We had hoped. What a note of tragedy in those words. But it is out of that great tragedy that God brought history's greatest triumph. Those two followers went on to relate how they had heard some of the women had found in the empty tomb, and others had gone to the tomb but did not see him. And then the stranger says, "O foolish men, and slow of heart to believe all that the prophets have spoken." Was it not necessary that Christ should suffer these things and enter into his glory? This is the story of Easter, the glory of the New Testament, the glory of the Christian faith, the glory of the Christian church. This is why we have gathered here on this Easter Sunday. It is Easter Sunday. To celebrate the good news of the resurrection. Because God stepped into history and said to the forces of evil, "That is enough. You can have no more of my son. I'll have the last word about this." And so as we celebrate this day and think about the risen Christ on the road to Emmaus, would you allow your heart and mind to be filled with these things? The resurrection is a transformation which takes place in our living. The resurrection with them all the way home. He told them so much that he wanted to stay with them. They sat down at the table for a meal together. He blessed the bread and he broke it. Then he gave it to them. There was something strangely familiar in all of that. And then Luke writes, their eyes were opened and they recognized him. Suddenly, everything was different. The entire situation was transformed. Nothing would ever be the same again. In a Sunday school class that I had in East Corinth, I was talking to the children about the understanding of the meaning of Holy Week. And when I explained the Good Friday, and I said to the child, I said, now this Friday is called what? And she responds, Good Friday. And the little boy replied again, goodbye. Old Pontius Pilate, the high priest, And all the members of the Sanhedrin poked each other in the ribs and said, "Goodbye, Jesus." But that last goodbye was a new hello for Jesus. Went from the garden tomb around by Emmaus and back to the upper room. Nothing has ever been the same since. From that moment on, all those who followed Jesus lived in the power of his resurrection. A transformation took place in their lives. It takes place in our living. Our living is different because we are no longer the same. We are no longer living the power of sin and death and darkness. We live now in the light of God's love in the dawn of a new day. Because of that, the meaning of our lives has been changed, has been transformed. In World War II, a soldier was mortally wounded while fighting in Germany. He knew that the war was coming to an end, though he would not live to see the final victory. He said to one of his friends, "Would you give my wife a message for me? Would you tell her I had the joy of knowing that we have won the victory?" Because of the resurrection of Jesus Christ, the meaning of our living has been transformed. Regardless of what might happen to us, we have the joy of knowing the victory has been won. Then something else. The resurrection is a conviction which grips our thinking. It is more than something we merely believe. It is a conviction that takes hold of us. After the risen Christ has revealed himself to those two followers, he vanished from their sight. And they said to each other, "Did not our hearts burn within us when he talked with us on the road, when he opened us up to the Scriptures?" They knew they had been in his presence. Their thinking was gripped by that conviction. That is what we need today. Some great convictions to live by. Like all times, this is a time when we do not need any more people who merely have opinions. What is needed today are people who have great convictions. In a church's Easter pageant, there was a scene with a large cardboard box was used for a tomb. There was a little boy inside the box playing the part of an angel. At one point he was to say, "He is not here. He has risen. Come, see the place where he lay." But he forgot his tongue, forgot his line. Nevertheless, with all the unction he could muster, he yelled out, "He ain't here! He's done gone!" The resurrection is a witness which inspires our sharing. It is more than a change in us, more than just a conviction. It is something we also live. It is a witness we share. Luke tells us that same hour those two followers left for Emmaus and went back to Jerusalem. They went to the upper room and found the disciples. They shared what they had experienced that day. It was something they could contained within themselves. The early church was the result of the resurrection. Those disciples were not looking for some new organization to join, some club to which they could belong. The church was a result of their witness. The resurrection was a story they had to tell, a conviction they had to announce, a witness they had to share. And when we gather here in this church, it is a witness to the power of the resurrection. Our Christian living is a witness to the power of the resurrection. Our giving of our lives to Christ is a witness to the power of the resurrection. Our commitment to being a servant of Christ is a witness to the power of the resurrection. Our love expressed in sacrificial ways is a witness to the power of the resurrection. Our words of comfort, hope, are a witness to the power of the resurrection. The resurrection of Jesus Christ has made Christians out of us, and our lives are a witness to the power of it. And this power continues to sustain our living. It gives us hope for today and all the tomorrows which await us. They didn't share, they shared. They didn't keep it to themselves. You are disciples of Christ. Share it. Let us pray. You make sense out of our confusing lives, God, and turn us in the right direction to experience your presence in all the places where we are all week long. Make our hearts burn too with the gospel of your Easter resurrection, to be shared with all we can tell. And fill us with your Spirit. In the resurrected Christ we pray. Amen.